They didn't break up because they stopped loving each other. In fact, love was the problem. It had become too heavy, too tangled with a pain neither of them had learned how to carry properly. Mara and Jonah met at a time when both were quietly broken. She was still recovering from years of feeling unseen, of believing her worth was conditional. He was still running from the idea that staying meant eventually hurting someone, that closeness was a precursor to abandonment. Together, they found a temporary solace, soft laughter that filled empty apartments, late-night talks where secrets felt safe, and shared silences that didn't need any explanation. For a while, their love felt like rest. It felt like coming home after a long, hard journey. But healing doesn't happen just because someone loves you. Your wounds don't magically close just because someone holds your hand. Slowly, their individual pain began speaking louder than their affection. Mara, desperate for reassurance, needed a kind of certainty that Jonah, with his own history, didn't know how to give. And Jonah, needing space to breathe, found himself suffocated by a fear that Mara didn't know how to stop projecting onto him. Every argument, no matter how small it started, ended the same way, with exhausted apologies layered over the same unresolved pain, like stacking bandages on a wound that needed stitches. They tried. God, they tried. They tried couples therapy. They read books. They made promises in the dead of night, whispering them into the darkness like prayers. But you can't build a stable house on a fractured foundation. One night, sitting on opposite ends of their worn-out couch, the space between them feeling like a canyon, with tears already exhausted, Jonah finally said the words neither of them wanted to hear, but both of them knew were true. "I think we need to heal." Separately, Mara didn't argue. She had felt it to the way loving him had started to reopen old wounds she hadn't finished tending to. The way staying, for both of them, was beginning to feel like a slow, painful act of self-abandonment. Just for a while, she whispered back, her voice barely audible. "Until we're better," they promised it wouldn't be forever. They weren't ending it, they were pausing it. They promised to come back to each other stronger, healthier, more whole. They held each other in a hug that felt like they were trying to memorize each other's shape, afraid to let go. They kissed like it was a bookmark, a promise to return to this page, not the end of the story. And when Jonah walked out the door, the click of the lock echoing in the sudden silence, neither of them truly believed it was for the last time. But healing was so much lonelier than either of them had expected. For Mara, the silence of the mornings was the loudest. There was no one to text a simple good morning to. She started therapy, really committing this time. She filled journals with thoughts she couldn't speak. She found herself crying in grocery store parking lots, triggered by a song or a memory. Some days she felt an immense pride in her growth, in the strength she was building. But on other days, she just missed him so much it felt like a physical ache in her chest. Yet, she kept going. She kept healing, because she knew that honoring the reason they left was the only way to make their sacrifice mean something. Jonah, meanwhile, threw himself into his work. He took on long hours, created new, rigid routines, anything to avoid the gnawing ache of her absence. He finally learned to sit with his emotions instead of running from them, discovering that so much of his need for distance came from a deep-seated fear, not a lack of love. He started to understand himself. Often, in the quiet moments after a long day, he'd think to himself, "When I'm better, I'll go back to her. When I'm whole, I'll deserve her." They both held onto the belief that the other person was out there, somewhere, waiting. But life doesn't pause for your healing journey. Months bled into a year, and then 2. The world kept spinning. Mara got a job opportunity she simply couldn't refuse, one that took her to a new city, hundreds of miles away. Jonah stayed, still convinced he had time, still working on himself. They lost touch the way most people do, slowly, almost imperceptibly. A flurry of initial messages turned into occasional check-ins. Then those became rare. And then, one day, they were just memories tucked away in a corner of the heart. Still, whenever someone asked if she'd ever been deeply in love, Mera's mind would drift back to Jonah. And still, when Jonah imagined the kind of peaceful, stable love he wanted for his future, it always had her face. They both healed, just as they had promised. But they healed separately, and in doing so, their paths began to diverge, stretching out in different directions. The day finally came when Jonah felt ready. Truly, deeply ready. He had done the work. He had faced his demons. He felt whole. With a smile creeping onto his face, he opened his laptop, imagining the conversation. Imagining the look of surprise, the relief in her eyes. Imagining being able to say those 5 simple words, "I did the work. I'm here now." He typed her name into the search bar. What he found instead was an obituary. Mara had died 6 months earlier. A car accident. Sudden. Unfair. The kind of random, brutal ending that offers no explanations and no closure. Jonah just sat there, on the floor of his now empty apartment, staring at the screen for hours. The words blurred. All the progress he'd made, all the grueling work of the past few years, it all felt utterly, cruelly meaningless in that one, shattering moment. They had broken up to heal. And he had healed for nothing. He attended the memorial quietly, standing in the back, a ghost among her friends and family. He listened as people shared stories of her kindness, her laugh, her incredible resilience, her growth. He wanted to scream. He wanted to shout that he had known her before all that, before she was so strong, before she learned how to survive without him. He wanted just one more chance. One more conversation. One more opportunity to say, "I'm better now. I came back for you." Mara never knew. She never knew that Jonah came back. She never knew he loved her enough to fundamentally change himself for her. She never knew that he had planned, with a heart full of hope, to find her again. She never knew that in every single step of his healing journey, he carried her with him. And Jonah never got to tell her that she was never a mistake. He never got to prove that his leaving wasn't the same as giving up. He never got to show her the man he had become because of her. Sometimes healing doesn't bring people back together. Sometimes it just teaches you how to live with the ghost of what you lost. Sometimes it just teaches you how deeply you are capable of loving someone you will never, ever see again. They broke up to heal. And in healing, they lost their chance to ever meet again. Please subscribe or follow, like and share. And I will see you in the next one.